I've been doing prospect breakdowns on this channel for months now, and finally the draft has happened. Now that we know landing spots and draft capital, it's like we've been working on a puzzle for months, but we were missing a few crucial pieces. We finally found them and we can complete the puzzle. So I'm gonna take a quick break from zooming in on specific prospects, and we'll give the drone view of the first round of Dynasty rookie drafts as I see it post NFL draft. And by the way, I'd love to know what you think, so please let me know down in the comments. If you love my takes, if you completely disagree, or whatever, I'd just love to hear your thoughts. With that said, let's get into it. In a tier of his own, I have Breece Hall. For a more in-depth look at him, you can check out my full breakdown. At the end of this video, you can click to a playlist of all my rookie breakdowns, and Breece Hall will be on there. But for now, suffice it to say, Breece is an incredibly well-rounded prospect with explosive athleticism, a 3-down skill set, and very few weaknesses. He was the first running back off the board in NFL draft, and if you're worried about Michael Carter, don't be. The team only invested day 3 draft capital in Carter, and just 1 year in, they have decided to invest a high second-round pick to upgrade to a much better player in Breece Hall. Even if it starts out in a timeshare, I highly doubt it'll stay that way. Breece is the safest prospect in the class by far. Okay, so tier 2. I do need to note that if your league is not Superflex, then Kenny Pickett is not in this tier and he's not a first round pick. But otherwise, I think you could put these 6 guys in any order you want and I would not fault you for it at all. Pickett is a little unique, so let's start there. In Superflex leagues, quarterback has the most positional scarcity by far, and he is the only one who went in the first round this year. And if Pickett hits, he's more valuable than any other guy in this tier simply because of the position he plays. And he landed in a perfect spot with a stable organization, great coaching, and tons of weapons around him to make his job easy. Though not a true dual threat, he's got good functional mobility to move in the pocket, escape pressure, and pick up a first down if he needs to. Once outside the pocket, he's very good at throwing on the run, which is a trait I really like to see. He doesn't have the crazy arm talent of a guy like Rodgers or Mahomes, and he doesn't have the rushing upside of a Fields or Lamar Jackson. But even if he ends up giving you a decade plus of Derek Carr or Kirk Cousins level play, you should take that and run in the first round of a Superflex draft. Kenneth Walker is probably who I see going at 1.2 most often, so let's talk about him. He transferred from Wake Forest to Michigan State this year, where he broke out and became a Heisman Trophy finalist. He's great running between the tackles, and he has excellent elusiveness. His size is good enough to handle a big workload, but the big question mark is his receiving ability. He had just 19 receptions in 3 seasons of college football. I think he looks good enough in a small sample size that he should be able to get the job done, but the data guys will point to the historically small likelihood that a guy with his lack of receiving production ends up being a productive pass catcher at the NFL level. If he doesn't become involved as a passer, we know that that really limits his upside in PPR leagues. So that's the big knock on Walker. I'd also expect him to split touches with Penny his first year in Seattle, but since they invested a second round pick in Walker, I doubt Penny gets re-signed past this year. And now the wide receivers. I've covered all these guys on my channel, so again, check the playlist at the end of this video. These guys were all drafted in the first round. They all have clear and immediate path to opportunity, and they all have major upside. Wilson is, in my opinion, the best route runner in the class and the safest prospect in this group. He's also the only one in the group whose team might already have their franchise quarterback on the roster in Zach Wilson. He does have some target competition in Elijah Moore and Corey Davis, but with early first round draft capital, I expect him to see the field immediately no matter who else is on the team. And once he's on the field, he's gonna produce. Dude is always open, has some of the best hands and body control in the class, and is just an all-around baller. While Wilson is the safest prospect, I think Jameson Williams has the most upside. He has truly elite game-breaking speed that nobody else in this class possesses, and frankly very few in the NFL possess. But I believe he's more than just a go-route specialist. He's actually an excellent route runner, he's explosive after the catch, and has very good body control to make some spectacular catches. His landing spot was not ideal. There are a lot of weapons in Detroit, and they don't currently have a quarterback who can get him the ball downfield to take advantage of his speed. Plus, he's coming off a torn ACL, and his thin frame gives him some trouble against press man coverage. But all in all, I would not be surprised at all if J-Mo ends up being a perennial Pro Bowler. And neither would the Lions, who moved up a whopping 20 spots in the draft to get him. In the upside department, Treylon Burks is a close second. He's a massive human being who runs a lot faster than his size would suggest. Arkansas manufactured ways to get him the ball because every time he touched it, he was a threat to take it to the house. He also is not afraid to use his size to play some bully ball, and that should translate because even against NFL corners, 6'2" and 225 pounds is a huge size advantage. He's the most raw route runner in this group by a lot, so he may take his lumps early, but he was taken 18th overall, and there is literally nobody to compete with him for targets on day one, so he'll have the chance to get out there and produce despite all that. I have to include him in this tier. Last, we've got the first wide receiver taken, Drake London. He doesn't have the elite speed of Williams or Burks, and he doesn't have the elite route running of Wilson, but he outproduced all of them in college, and it wasn't particularly close. He stands at 6'4" and 220 pounds with a massive catch radius. He's a good route runner in the short area, getting separation quickly off the line. He caught a ton of passes in the short to intermediate game and frequently created extra yards after the catch. Where he has trouble separating is down the field due to his lack of top speed, but that's where his size comes in, frequently making spectacular contested catches for big plays. He was taken in the top 10, and with Ridley suspended for a full season, he steps in as the immediate top wide receiver on the team alongside star tight end Kyle Pitts. The rub? His quarterback is Marcus Mariota. Hey guys, I want to take a quick second to thank the sponsor of this rookie series, DynastyNerds.com. If you want to study these prospects for yourself and form your own opinions, you need to watch full games, every snap, so you can see all the strengths and weaknesses for every prospect and not just the highlights. The absolute best place to do that is the Dynasty Nerds film room. We cut up games so you can watch a full game for a prospect in under 10 minutes. We have hundreds of games in the film room, and we have tons of hard to find college all-22 coaches tape. Get all that and more for the price of a cup of coffee every month. Go to DynastyNerds.com and use promo code COOP for 15% off. Alright, let's start this tier with Olave, who I think is the safest player of the group. The Saints invested an enormous amount to move up and get Olave at 11th overall, so there's no question that he is going to be on the field and heavily involved in the offense from day one. He's one of the most refined route runners in the class and has really reliable hands. It's extremely hard to imagine him being a bust. So why is he not in the second tier? One word. Upside. Olave's thin, lacks physicality, and offers almost nothing after the catch. I simply don't think he possesses the same upside as the players in my second tier. Jahan Dotson is even more undersized than Olave is. Physicality from DBs can really knock him off his routes, and because of that, he may be relegated to being a slot wide receiver in the NFL. But he put enough spectacular catches on tape that I do have hope he can play on the outside in the NFL, and he is much more dangerous after the catch than Olave is. I personally liked his tape a little bit better pre-draft, but Olave was drafted first and to a better situation. These two are really close for me. Finally, we have Skyy Moore. He's also short at just 5'10", but he is much stockier than the other two receivers we just discussed. He's also got very good speed. He's produced since his freshman year, and his tape is amazing. He runs such crisp routes and shows good contested catch ability as well. I would guess the fantasy community and even NFL scouts would feel pretty differently about him if he had done all this at a Power 5 school. But alas, he went to Western Michigan. This probably had a lot to do with him being taken in the back half of the second round. That draft capital and small school pedigree is why he's in this tier, as well as lacking elite size and athleticism. But I love his talent, and he's fallen into the best situation of anyone we've discussed so far by far. He's paired with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and was pretty clearly drafted to fill the top wide receiver void left by Tyreek Hill. Those are big shoes to fill, and I certainly wouldn't expect that kind of production right off the bat, but his upside is immense. This is where it gets really dicey for me. If you can trade up into the top 10 or move the pick for a player you like or a future first, I would strongly consider doing that, but there's a lot of different directions you could go, and to be completely honest, I'm not confident at all that these two wide receivers, or really anyone else left for that matter, won't completely bust. But these two guys have the highest upside, so they're who I would take the swing on personally. First, let's talk Christian Watson. He's an athletic freak from North Dakota State University who was on nobody's radar at all until he lit up the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama. He was reportedly the best wide receiver all week long, and he left people asking, who is this kid from North Dakota that is 6'4" and runs a 4.36 40-yard dash? He then went on to dominate the combine. He was the best wide receiver athletically in the whole class. He's not just big and fast either, he's really fluid moving laterally for a guy his size, but athleticism isn't everything. He's extremely raw as a route runner, and his 13% drop rate is the worst in the class by a pretty wide margin. His production profile also leaves a lot to be desired. When a guy is playing small school competition, you want him to dominate, and he just didn't. He landed in an amazing situation in Green Bay as Aaron Rodgers' presumed wide receiver 1, but honestly, I can see Rodgers getting really frustrated with him really fast. If this pick hits, it'll hit big time, but I think there's a very good chance that he's a bust. The same rings true for our next wide receiver, George Pickens. A former 5-star recruit coming out of high school, he broke out as a true freshman at Georgia and was on everyone's radar as the potential wide receiver 1 in this class. Unfortunately, his production dipped in a COVID-shortened sophomore season, and then he spent most of his final year of college sidelined with a torn ACL. He's big, fast, quick, physical. On tape, he shows flashes of true greatness and tantalizes people with his upside. But sadly, the tape tells a different story if you look beyond just the highlights. He was a guy who didn't always play hard, and that's just as responsible for his lack of college production as any injury. He was suspended at one point for violating team rules, ejected at one point for throwing a punch, and his own head coach called him undisciplined. He did land in a great organization with the Steelers, who have a penchant for developing wide receivers, and that gives me hope. But if he's not willing to put in the work to develop his craft, he'll be a bust no matter who his coach is. He also steps into a crowded group of receivers with Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, and Pat Freiermuth already established firmly in the offense. Just like Watson, this could be a huge hit if it hits. I'm just not confident in this pick at all. So that wraps up my thoughts on who I'd be targeting in the first round of rookie drafts after the NFL draft. Let me know what you think down in the comments, and check out this playlist for much more in-depth breakdowns on all these rookies. We'll see you there.